Okay, let's get started. Max, you want to talk about this PCAP?
It's the spiritual successor, as I called it somewhere.
Okay.
Not sure where. Um, yeah, basically, we still want to have something to be able to allow app developers to capture packets from the app container, which is super helpful when you want to troubleshoot egress issues or when you have a certain request that, for example, crashes your app and you can just dump that plain text. The same reasons apply as for the pitch for PCAP release. Um, and one of the things that often comes up, or that is a fact, is that for build pack apps, you have no way to escalate your privileges. That, as I understand it, is a feature, which makes sense in many scenarios, but especially when you start enabling Docker images for your platform, it kind of is out of the window, because with Docker apps, you can specify the user that you run as, which can be root. Vladimir made a valid case that maybe the application itself doesn't want to have the ability to escalate to root or like privileges in general. Um, so maybe we want something that is possible per app. But the bottom line is basically that there are many ways of achieving this. So we could have a binary TCP dump that brings the necessary capabilities, and then you can just as regular user run TCP dump and the binary will be able to get the privileges it needs. You can have sudo, either as an like all or nothing approach, or where you allow the operator to specify what kind of rights the user has, which also again allows you to limit which applications can be executed with which capabilities, and like it's very fine-grained and very complicated. Yeah, I guess those are the two most interesting approaches. Yeah, I'm just kind of looking for feedback. What what you also think makes sense. Um,
Are both of those options laid out somewhere?
so this is mostly about the pseudo thing because I think that
Okay.
so the if we only add capabilities to TCP dump to the binary, it's a very niche use case. Like you can only do that one very specific thing. And the more I
Like you
thought
can
about
only
it,
do TCP dump.
yes, because
Yeah.
only the binary would kind of be able to escalate its own privileges. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but with sudo, you could decide who gets to kind of do what. And depending on how you implement it, you can allow the operator to also control who gets to do what. Because sudo is just the generic elevate my privileges tool.
Mm-hmm.
And you can look at the documentation for the sudoers file. It's yeah, it's a very complex thing, and it allows you to do very specific things. Like you can again allow a specific user to only execute a single binary as root, and then you could like have a list of applications that you want to allow because maybe someone wants to core dump the application, like dump the memory so that they can see the state the application is in. My understanding, you can't do that right now because you would need root, not sure which capability exactly, but some sort of sudo. Um, and if we only do TCP dump, such things are only to be done independently. Whereas if we do something with sudo or some generic approach, we have a way of like extending it and or maybe also giving the operator the chance to decide. The
You're
benefit, I
imagining a
guess,
foundation-wide operator
yes,
decision.
yes.
Yeah.
And you could also push it down to the app developer, but I'm not sure how much complication I would expose the app developer.
Yeah.
If, so the
Plus, it's
one thing that,
like giving the keys to the bank robber. It's like, oh, should I use
well, it's
this?
not. That's the thing. Because if you, so I get that some foundations maybe don't want this in general, then they should just not enable it. I get that. But if you start enabling things like Docker apps, you did already open the door and you gave away the keys. Actually, not quite, because root in the container doesn't map to root on the VM. We use user namespaces as I understand it. So you are still heavily isolated in the container, and even a container breakout doesn't allow you to do much. Um, but yeah, of course, it always has like trade-offs. So,
Yeah.
And to be honest, I don't care.
What did security think?
They didn't really say a lot. At least I haven't heard
Yeah.
a lot for
Okay.
now. Um, yeah, I just kind of want to get general feedback on if people think that a certain thing is just not doable, or that we have some boundary conditions that we need to take care of, or I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And if the consensus is we can do whatever we want, I can write up a more detailed proposal.
Okay.
If there are some constraints, I will try and see if I can come up with a proposal that fits that constraint or those constraints. But right now, I have an opinion on this,
Mm-hmm.
but that may not align with the wider community, with the security folks and so on. So I'm just opening this up and kind of publishing or like advertising for it here.
Yeah, basically, do we want to go down the path of just TCP dump, or do we want to expose
Yeah.
capabilities?
So if we go just TCP dump, you could also think about modifying. So if you do capabilities, you can do that on like it's on the file system. So it could be that we just change it in the stack and then it's just there. Whereas if we go sudo, it's probably more dynamic thing that needs integration into Diego and stuff. And so just to give you an example, the ping binary, that's already a setcap binary that has capabilities assigned. And it needs those to do, yeah, whatever.
Oh,
It's
really?
its
I didn't
thing.
know that.
So it's definitely supported because otherwise ping wouldn't work. And there's like setcap and getcap, two binaries that you can install, and then you can like investigate your system, and you'll be surprised how many binaries actually have capability set so that they work for regular users. Yeah.
Okay. Um, I didn't get so clear from this that there were two options and you just wanted a path to go
That's true.
down.
Yeah.
Uh, if you could edit that a little, I can distribute it more widely. Initially, I'm thinking, oh, I just put TCP dump in there. This idea of exposing capability scares me, but that's just my gut reaction.
Yeah. Yeah, it gives more privileges to the app developers. But again, if you really want to do something awful, your foundation probably has Docker apps enabled, or like let's say your foundation does have Docker apps
Yeah,
enabled, because if you like, yeah, then yeah,
yeah. But you would have to be running a Docker app. I don't know how many. I don't run into that. At least when I'm debugging people, it's not something I run into.
that they have Docker enabled.
Yeah, that they're using Docker apps.
Hmm, I see.
I mean, maybe
Yeah.
people do. You are much closer to real foundations than I am.
Well, we have it enabled for all of our foundations, so
Yeah,
Yeah, we have quite a lot
yeah.
of Docker apps.
um, yeah, okay. So yeah, the issue is that this has been going on for some time. I first tried pushing it somewhere on the Slack, but there didn't get much traction. There's the capability approach written down, so I'll just try and summarize the two options
hmm
in the issue. Yeah, I'm also want to ping Thomas Thalhofer, who's from SAP side in the security working group. Is it a working group in the security area, whatever?
Yeah,
Um, to chime in, and yeah.
sounds good. It would definitely be nice. We definitely get in debugging, get on a lot of foundations and do TCP dump. Uh, Tamara, tell me about hash-based routing.
Yeah, I want to discuss or present it a little bit. It's still in draft, but we are pretty ready to move it to ready for review. Also we prepared with RFC to implement hash-based load balancing algorithm as per route feature. And if you can click on the first change, yeah. Yeah, it's mostly about that now GoRouter uses round-robin list connection to distribute requests and command requests. And for such scenarios, like here's an example for that, that users from different tenants send requests to application instances that establish connection to tenant-specific databases. And it lead to the issues between app instances and backend services like database, that it is a full mesh created, and it can reach the limits of the open allowed open connections to databases. And for such scenarios, hash-based routing would be a pretty efficient solution. And this is there is a list of more precise requirements also, that it's we propose that it should be applied only as per route option and not as global setting, because it might sense to solve a particular load problems, but not a general purpose load balancing algorithm. And there are listed another requirements like we do not want to, maybe I forgot to say that in general, this hash-based routing, it's more that in GoRouter will be configured some request identifier, for example, header, and based on this header, GoRouter can calculate stable hash, and the routing decision will be done based on this hash value. And in this case, it is important that if as application instances can be edited or removed or crashed or something like that, then it's important that we do not rehash every time this table. That can be a local file on each GoRouter VM, but it is pretty this table pretty stable, and only in case of some changes, a small part will be rehashed, but not the entire table. Yeah, and it is also a requirement, right? It's possible that some tenants will have a lot of traffic comparing to another, and it can be the case that one app instance will got a lot of traffic and be overloaded. So something like overloaded means that current request number is much more than average number of in-flight requests. And it is something like custom requirements that we need to introduce a balance factor and consider it during the request distribution. And as we want to implement it as per route feature, it is mostly changes related to GoRouter, also to implement new iterator that defines what is the next endpoint that can get and handle the request. And the another part will be done or should be done in Cloud Controller, because it is part where manifest properties will be extended and edited and validated, and that is pretty two main components that should be adapted in for this feature. Yeah, maybe side note, according to my opinion, maybe I would not make this change. I would not implement this change for route register. It's not really symmetric, maybe, but to be honest, it's not clear if it is really a use case to have hash-based routing for BOSH components or BOSH as a platform system components. But it's only my opinion, so to say. We can discuss it in this pull request or for RFC if it makes sense to implement it or not.
Yeah, that sounds fine to me, to skip it.
Yeah, and below you can find some of activities diagrams. Try to draw how it could be could be done on Go router side. Also the main effort will be to implement this algorithm in the good and clean way. Yeah. Max, do you want to support me as I'm presenting the first time here? I'm not sure if it is.
Oh, you have a lot of detail in here. One thing I don't understand is how does the hash get into the route table, or what is like the hash going to be? So the client sends a hash in a header when I'm trying to connect to an app.
As the client sends requests with some header.
Right.
In the manifest, in the as route property or option, it will be defined which header should Go router took in consideration, and then based on this header, Go router will calculate the hash. So Go router calculates the hash for configured header.
And then how do you match that hash to a app instance?
It can be stored locally in local files. That we do not need creators every time this table, but it's something like can be done once. Yeah.
So
come again. Come.
the matching depends on the algorithm that you employ. There's like different ways of doing this, but one way of thinking of it is you have every value between 0 and 1 as possible hash result values. So you put in your string and then you get a value between 0 and 1. And if you have 10 instances, then well, 0 to 0.1 is the first instance, 0.1 to 0.2 is the second instance. So you kind of create this spectrum, and every hash will be somewhere on that spectrum. And then depending on where it lands, you know which instance to pick. Again, there's tons of implementations for this, but this is one way of thinking about it that I find is kind of understandable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so when a new app instance spins up, how does it get a new? Oh, wait, okay, let's say I have, okay, I know you said between 0 and 1, but let's just say between 1 and 10. So we have 10 app instances. They each calculate to a hash that's, an integer. One of them goes down, 8 goes down, 8 spins, or another app instance comes back up. How do they all get a new hash? How does it get a new hash?
That's why I'm using between 0 and 1, because
Okay,
it's not
sorry.
discrete values. It's like you have this you give everyone a range. But again, depending on the algorithm, this can also be done wildly different than what I'm describing. But you would basically redistribute it. So if we go from 10 to 9, you would now have from 0 to 0.11, and then from 0.11 to 0.22, and then kind of by that divide the range into 9 slices. This has bad properties when it comes to like redistributing clients and so on. And that's where the more complex algorithms come in, because they have strategies to prevent a single instance coming or going, causing too much redistribution in the clients, basically, or tenants, or whatever you want to call it. I can recommend the Maglev paper, which is from Google, and it explains their consistent hashing implementation. It goes into great detail, and I think does a good job at explaining it. But for this RFC, we mostly consider the details to be implementation specific. The idea is to describe what are desirable properties and what we should kind of look at when we decide on which strategy to use. That's what layout. I think maglev is also mentioned as one possible implementation. But if during the implementation process we find out that for some reason it's not suitable, we will just pick a different one that matches what we want to see, basically.
I removed it because
Okay.
really, there are different approaches like consistent hashing and rendezvous hashing. And the idea is that RFC is a little bit abstract. It is not really how it will be implemented, more about direction, what we want to achieve. And it was the idea that maybe that we would like to involve community in discussion about these hashing attempts and the approaches in the implementation issue, because it's really Go router related. So it's
I
not
see. Yeah.
at the high level. High level is only what we want to achieve, so to say.
Yeah.
Got it.
And then basically whenever an instance comes or goes, Go router, so basically when Go router receives the first register message or the unregister message, it knows that the pool size changes, and so it will probably, again, implementation detail, calculate its table new, and then just do that more expensive operation once, and then start kind of mapping the things again. So
Okay.
for stable applications, we expect that it wouldn't have to recalculate that too often, and it should be
Mm-hmm.
not too bad.
Um, okay. I'm all for adding another routing algorithm, and I agree with your thought that this shouldn't be something that's set foundation wide. But I'll look more into the details and try to give more feedback. But thank you so much for writing this up. There's a lot of detail for me to read into. Any other thoughts on this hash-based routing? It's exciting. You put it route, it's like all part of a long story, doing the like app individual routing instance or routing algorithms, and now this. Plamen, you're getting easy CLA issues.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Oh
So
wait, this is other Plamen.
yeah, it's the other problem, but yeah, apparently we have issue with this pull request, which is IP version 6 related, and it's actually the only one still outstanding. Unfortunately, Dimitrov is no longer working for SAP. He left the company, and he's kind of a
Oh,
co-author of this pull.
it's not a big deal. I can override the need for a CLA.
Okay, then fine,
Yeah, don't worry
because
about it.
we
Yeah.
already tried several approaches and none of them managed to resolve this issue. So that was my ask, if we can somehow overcome this story.
Yeah. I know Amin looked over it and maybe left some comments,
Yeah,
or maybe just
he's mentioning some merge conflicts, which are, by the way, already resolved by the other
okay.
plan with those 2 commits at the bottom.
Okay.
But yeah, so
I know he asked our team if someone else could look at it because he felt like it was very big, and it is.
yeah, but overall, if we can overcome this easy COA issue, really appreciate. So
Yeah, I can merge that
thank you.
when it's
Thank you,
approved. No
Amelia.
worries.
Before you do, just fresh off the
Yeah.
presses, I'm in chat with the other Plamen, and we did find at least one issue. You maybe see the very bottom commit. There was some things still with the Gomod rendering and the packaging of that. So we're going through and making sure that everything works out correctly. This is the first one we found. It might not be the last. So
Yeah.
we'll write something that is then complete with the
Okay.
deployment we have here.
Yeah, I'll wait for you to ping me again.
Perfect.
And Friday's a holiday for Americans, so I probably won't see it until next Monday.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Perfect. And this one, ooh, different font. Okay, anything else we want to talk about today?
Just one note, I guess. Officially on the 1st of July, I switched the teams at SAP. So I'm now in a different team, no longer part of the Cloud Foundry organization. I haven't gone far. It's the Gardener folks at SAP, if you heard of them. So I'm doing some infrastructure stuff, and I will still be around,
That's what they
approve some
all
stuff,
say.
comment on some stuff. But yeah, as you know from the past, I will fade out eventually. Yeah,
Well, it's been great having you.
Yeah.
thanks.
Good luck. Okay, everyone. I will have a good July, and I will see you in Slack.
See you.